So do you like the addition of our crucifer this morning? Case and Chase will be doing this for us on a fairly regular basis for this service on Sunday mornings. And we're really happy to welcome them into these roles. Well, here we are. We've made it to Epiphany. Happy Epiphany. Yeah, your Merry Christmases are gone, okay? Happy New Year's okay. Happy Epiphany is fine. And it's rare. We don't often have Feast of the Epiphany that flows and falls on Sunday. But we do this year, which is kind of a fun sort of thing to do. We have all these sorts of traditions around Epiphany. One is the chalking of the door. We do that sometimes in the church, and sometimes we do that at homes. I'm not going to give you any details about what that is because as you leave today, our church school kids will be there. They've got a little baggie to give you that's got some chalk in it and an explanation of what chalking of the door is and how to do it. So you're welcome to take one for each household that you would like to perhaps consider doing that. It's just a house blessing is what it is. But there are other sorts of things we do. We've got this beautiful, beautiful creche up here that's set up, and everybody's there. Everybody. Oh, we don't have a Darth Vader or a dinosaur, but those can be arranged, and it's not unusual to find those in creches. I found them there. But there's a tradition that we sometimes do in our homes and also in churches, and that is when we set the creche up, we don't put the wise men in it. We put everyone but the wise men. And then, it's my practice typically when I've done this, is that we put the wise men somewhere way over here. And then the next Sunday, we move them back to here. And then the next Sunday, we move them back to here. And then we put them over here. And then on the Feast of the Epiphany, there they are. Them and their camels. And they're all there because that's the story of how that came about. So we've got traditions like that are very rich and meaningful. Now, if you go back and read the story of the Gospels, some of those traditions are not there. For instance, how many wise men are there? No, go read the Gospel. It doesn't tell you how many there are. It just says wise men. And Matthew, don't go looking in Mark and Luke and John. They don't tell that story. Matthew does, and he doesn't say how many. So traditions have grown up that it's either 3 up to as many as 12. Now, it's not in the Scriptures, so maybe we shouldn't do it, but could you imagine showing up for the Christmas Eve pageant and telling the folks, no, we're not going to have wise men in this? I would just have to resign. I would just have to go away because that's a tradition that's rich and very meaningful for folks, and there's really nothing wrong with that. When you get ready to chalk your doors, there's a formula that you use, and the 3 letters in the middle are C, M, and B. And those letters correspond to the first letter of the name of each of the wise men. Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar. I usually get them confused and mixed up the names, but that's pretty much where they are. But there's no names. Look in the Scriptures. There's no names for them. Again, it's a tradition that's grown up. It's a very rich tradition, and it has meaning for us, and that's fine. I'm not one who thinks we must throw away everything that is not literally there, but I also want to suggest that in this wonderful, incredibly complex story that we read in Matthew's Gospel today, there is something for us that goes beyond just the traditions that we assign to this very, very special day. Wise men, the word used in Greek is magi, which comes from the term magus. And that referred to a specific group of people, believe it or not. Priests in the religion of Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism is one of the oldest religions ever. It still exists. And it was located primarily in Persia at that time. So these, and as part of it was that they used astrology. They watched the stars and the sky for signs. And so here were these guys from Persia who were watching the stars, and they knew for themselves that there had been a prophecy that the King of the Jews would be born in Bethlehem. And it would be signaled by a star that they wouldn't know before. And so that's what happened. They see this star and they go, "Oy vey!" Actually, they didn't. They see this star and they go, "Look! Look! There must be a new king of the Jews. So let's go see him. There's got to be a shower. And we should be there. There's always cake and all of those strange little games you play. And we'll take some gifts as we go. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. We're going to take some gifts." However many of them there were, they took those gifts. And they set out following the star, kind of like you and I when we, in our own lives, see something that draws us and we go toward it. And we try to keep it in front of us, and so they did. And they head out to Bethlehem and wind up in Jerusalem. Why? I can just hear the star going, recalculating. Well, the reason that they may have gone to Jerusalem, the reason they may have gone was because Herod was the king of the Jews. And maybe they thought that this was a new birth in the royal family. And they went to check it out with him first. After all, he's a wonderful sort of guy, you know. He really isn't. They wind up in Jerusalem with Herod, who is the consummate politician. He will do anything to keep power, to hold on to his being the king of the Jews. He will do anything to hold on to the wealth, the power, and the authority that goes with all of that. Even to the point that he killed his wife and children because he was afraid they were going to execute a coup on his position. Caesar Augustus once said of Herod, "I would rather be a pig than one of his sons." That's pretty brutal. So they go see Herod, this political first, and I know in your head right now you're going, historically, I can see that in this kind of person who lived before, and some of you are going, I can see it in this kind of person who's alive now somewhere in this world. We can all see some of that in people who, for whatever reason, will throw anyone literally under the bus to maintain and hold on to whatever power and wealth they have. Well, Herod comes out and they say, "We've come to pay homage to this new member of your family." And he said, "Somebody's had a kid?" And they say, "Yes." And they say, "We understand it was to be in Bethlehem." And he said, "I tell you what, I'm really interested in this. I would like to go visit my family and to celebrate this with them. So you go and check it out, and you come back and tell me. Because then I'm going to buy them a gift and take it and go to the next baby shower." So they head out, recalculating. They get back on board with the star, and they head to Bethlehem. They get there. And they have to make a decision. You see, it's not right after Christmas. If you haven't caught on, this is a good time later because Mary and Joseph and Jesus have moved. They're no longer in Nazareth. They're now in a house in Bethlehem. They have to decide, do we go in that door of that house or not? And they do. And when they walk in, here's this child. And they take out their gifts and they pay homage. And then they get up and they leave. James Taylor has this absolutely wonderful song. I don't know if you know it. Home by Another Way. It's the story of the Magi. And it's beautifully told. He does a wonderful job with it. But what hooks me is the title. Home by Another Way. You see, like you and I, when we encounter things in our lives, these wise men, these wise people who came out of that room, they had to make, out of that home, they had to make a decision. They had to decide which way to go. Do we go back to Herod, or do we go another way? You see, I think that's what this Scripture brings to us. I think it's where it hooks us in our lives. You and I, we could decide which way we're going to go. We could have a checklist. Checklists can be really helpful at times. Check this off, reset the GPS, check that off, the whole thing. We can address those things very easily in a checklist, but I want to suggest to us that there is a decision that you and I must make before we decide which way we're going to go. And it's quite simply this. Which king of the Jews are we going to follow? Which king of the Jews are we going to follow? Now, there's some pretty clear delineation there. I mean, you got Herod here who will do anything, hurt anybody, lie, cheat, kill to maintain power and authority and wealth, and who loudly proclaims, I am the king of the Jews, and is quite proud of it, and is threatened by anyone else who doesn't. Or there is this child in this house in Bethlehem. Parents are poor. He is poor. He's a child who has no standing in the society of the time. He's a kid. Makes no claim to being king of anything. And later, as he's getting ready to die, when someone looks at him and says, are you the king of the Jews? He doesn't say, yes, I am. He says, you say I am. Who are we going to follow? Well, if I follow this person with the power and the authority and the wealth, maybe I can get some of that. Maybe you can. But I suspect that it will cost us our lives. So it's time to go home. It's time to go home. We've come, we've seen the baby in the manger. We've gone to the house in Bethlehem. We've seen this child. It's time to go home. Which way are you going? Amen.